the publisher of Defyeneurs, and welcome to the leadership issue. This is probably one of the most explosive issues that we have launched, and we are live with Jenni Byrd Grier and David Byrd, our cover story, our featured cover story. Welcome, David and Jenni.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
This is a stellar photo of the two of you, and I just love it. In the feedback we're getting from how just the synergy of you two, it's really exciting to see that. So I'm excited about this cover story. It's a cover story I've been wanting to do for a while. The two of you have been following you for a few years, elite leadership coaches, and I love where you're taking the overall vision. So let's get into it. David, there's a quote that you share in your profile. I love it, and I want listeners to hear it. It goes like this: an inspired leader understands that to lead others to higher levels of growth, they must grow as well. I just think that's so profound. So David, what makes an inspired leader?
Well, that's exactly what makes an inspired leader. You can't give what you don't have. If you're going to inspire others, you must first be inspired yourself, or otherwise it will just come across flat or heartless. So my thoughts about it is you must continue the process of growth, because a theory of mine, and it's now, I just practically, I do live by it, and that is the concept of grow or decline. You're either growing or you're declining. There is no in between. And so many people attempt and try to live in between those two, so that they're not ever pressured to grow, and they think they're not declining either. They're just standing still. The reality is, everything I read in psychology is that the reality is, if in the absence of growth, decline is inevitable. Even though if you're not feeling it, your natural human instinct will always fight your growth. So if you choose not to grow, then the reality is you're going to decline. If you walk out in nature and just look around, everything in nature is either growing or decaying. In other words, and we're the same way. We're part of nature. So to grow, we have to constantly grow. And that's what the growth I'm talking about is our own emotional, personal growth, our growing this thing up here, our brain, how we perceive, how we, the perspectives of life, and how those perspectives come from the perceptions, what we see. Mm-hmm. So that's excellent. I think that's what creates an inspirational leader. You can feel it when you walk in the room with an inspirational leader. You can feel the authentic, genuine energy coming from that person. That didn't just happen. People aren't just born with that. That is developed.
That's excellent. That's excellent. I love how you phrase that. I love this energy around that process of growth never stops. And, there's that continual investment. So Jenni, share with your thoughts on that. What, in your mind, what makes an inspired leader?
Well, I absolutely agree with, this continuous process of consistent growth is absolutely the foundation of an inspired leader. But I also believe an inspired leader is a servant leader, one who is always thinking about helping others versus first thinking about what's in it for me. Leaders who can inspire by achieving and setting their own example, they get results. But I believe an inspired leader creates opportunities for others to achieve and helps others overcome their own self-imposed limitations.
I love it. I love that servant leadership. It's another reason why I'm so honored that the two of you are gracing this cover. I believe the world's ready for this new inspired leadership. And I find that this is exactly the kind of energy that the world needs right now. There's a wonderful quote that Jenni shares. It goes like this: leaders who inspire others by their own example are highly effective and get results. So David, share with us, why is inspired leadership more important now than ever?
From my perspective, inspired leadership is something different than assigned leadership. There's a lot of leaders who reach a certain position or they're given a certain position, and it is a position of leadership. And it's they truly are the leader, and sometimes that comes into the quotes of boss or authority, and sometimes we begin to wear the authority badge and simply directing. And the problem with that, it's uninspired, it's heartless. I'm not saying it's mean-spirited or mean or ugly. It's not any of those things. It's just uninspired. The significance of leadership in creating the culture of our future is about it's got to be up here. It's got to be in the heart. And it's not just a mechanical thing that you learn when you get an MBA. In fact, most top level business owners are telling me when an MBA comes out of graduate school, the first thing they got to learn how to manage is this thing here. Not that they don't have the knowledge, they have the knowledge. But as far as being able to have a perspective about the knowledge or have that level of awareness about the knowledge you have, understanding is simply the knowledge base that you have. Awareness, however, is the experiential level of knowledge. And knowledge never changes anything in anyone's life. You're not just going to learn something and it will change you. What changes you is the awareness of the knowledge you have.
That's excellent.
So what happens in our culture with leadership, when leaders can inspire others to grow themselves, then those newly inspired leaders develop a new culture because they're actually creating new levels of awareness as we grow. If you look at what we know about the brain now than what we knew 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it's amazing. The author Gary Zukav predicted this 20 years ago. In his book, Seed of the Soul, he talked about the evolution that was coming. This is people who can see beyond the reality of what's going on. People who can actually see the nuance. That's awareness. And I think that's the leadership culture that is needed to create the culture of change within our society so that we change in the right directions. Rather than wrong directions.
I love it. I love the way you refer to that culture of leadership, and I love that knowledge base and the awareness and how you refer to awareness. So, Jenni, listening to that, share with us, why do you feel inspired leadership is important today? Maybe even so on as we see a new world of female executives coming on board, as you know, like yourself. How do you find that affecting inspired leadership?
Well, I think so many times leaders try various techniques to get things out of people. Mm-hmm. Inspiration happens on the inside. The word inspired really means in spirit. So when you're inspired, you are living in sync with your spirit. And I think that's what my dad was talking about as well. That's when you're really connecting to people's heart and soul. And I also believe that inspired leaders have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. There's been studies done on the C-suite of executives. Do they have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? A fixed mindset kind of says, well, you got what you got. There's not much you can do about it. Whereas a growth mindset really believes in the potential of all people. And they've truly studied, executives and school teachers, when they have a fixed mindset, there is a lack of talent. When they have a growth mindset, there is an abundance of talent. So I also believe, inspiration happens within. So I think an inspired leader is able to connect to their own heart and soul and to the heart and soul of others. And I also believe that leads them to having a growth mindset, which believes in the potential of all people.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. It feels good to be you, doesn't it, Jenni?
Well, I can say, I've shared this before, I can say for the first time in my life, I shared this, Jerry, with you in the book Influence, I feel that I'm doing exactly what I was put on this earth here to do. And I can't say I've had that feeling my whole life. And that's an amazing feeling. And when you have that feeling, I'm so filled with gratitude for it. I'm so inspired to help others find that as well.
I love that. And yeah, I love that you mentioned the new autobiography that's coming out next month, as you know, David, Influence, that features your daughter's autobiography. So for me, that was a real thrill to not only extract, as you know, I love to extract, but to then co-create this autobiography that I'm really honored to have written that and to see it published, and how you refer to, you know, the light and the inspired light of your dad and your mom being such a guide for you. So that was really cool for me to do that. Just now that we're on that, David, what's your thoughts on that? Seeing, you know, now that your daughter's autobiography is being released out into the world, and you're written quite a bit through those pages.
He hasn't read it yet, I should tell you, so he doesn't know what I said about him.
Very good. Very, very good. It's very positive.
I do want to comment on something that Jenni just said, and I think it's extremely important, and that's about the potential of all people.
Okay.
And we say that a lot. And Jenni grew up in that. Jenni grew up in an environment where we were always trying to tap into the untapped potential that's there, and it's always there. Leaders, especially as you coined it, the uninspired leader, has a tendency to look beyond that. They can't see that potential. So what they do is they judge people on how they feel about them. They judge people on maybe what the person did right or wrong in one evaluation, or we have a tendency to prejudge people. We look at people and say, oh, that person will never make it, or that person doesn't look right, they'll never make it. The issue is, it's not about the outward appearance or the external observation of actions. Within every person is the constant potential to achieve. Every person has it, but it's untapped potential. The leader, the true leader, the authentic leader, what I call the developer leader, that developer leader has the ability to pull that untapped potential out of a person so that they can rise above who they are right now. Most leaders today are assessing people on where they are right now, as opposed to where leaders can be if that potential is developed. The problem is it's untapped. And potential is a useless commodity until it is developed. And Jenni and I've been in the industry for 40 years. That's what we do. We simply help people use the potential they have and just bring it out and try to use just a little bit more of it every day. It's not about making great, big, giant leaps. It's about just using just a little bit more of it every day.
It's excellent. It's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And Jenni, I love how you talk about inspired leadership, inspiration, you know, being inspirited with your life purpose. There's a real common ground between the answers, which I love. And and I just noticed your amazing photo in the back on the wall framed with Influence. That's pretty cool. In the Influence magazine.
Yeah.
I love that.
That's a new one.
That's excellent. Okay, there's another quote I want to share with listeners. I love this. I love this. David, you share in your profile, we all have these natural human instincts that encourage us to our own self-interest. So I want to get into David Byrd Consulting. How is your leadership shifting our world?
Well, when you speak of world perspective, I'm kind of humbled because I have a hard time seeing myself changing the world. I see myself as changing people one person at a time.
Right.
And I guess in reality that is changing changing the world in small incremental steps. We can only work with what we have, what we have, and we can only move in a direction that we can do. We have always got to work with that perspective. So the natural human instinct, Gary, has a tendency to, we're born with it. We share it with the animal kingdom. We're very much like that, but our brain has evolved beyond that. I see it almost as a divine characteristic within us. We have the ability to imagine. We have this metacognitive ability where we can actually step outside ourselves and look at what we're thinking about. We can actually see it. So I believe that leadership development, from my perspective, has always been helping a person change by helping a person move beyond their own self-conscious self-interest and into the interest of growth. And growth requires that you believe that you need to grow. There's so many folks who just don't believe they really need to grow. I'm doing pretty good. I'm comfortable. We confuse happiness with comfort, and it's not the same thing. We should never confuse the two. Happiness is something that's a lot deeper than just being in the same old comfort zone all the time, every day, over and over and over. But our natural human instinct will always encourage us to seek that comfort zone where we're always emotionally safe. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we're miserable in that comfort zone. And I don't even like to use the term, because we can be miserable in our comfort zone because we're not growing. But our natural human instinct, if you go to your intuitive feelings, then you will always stay there. You've got to get past that. And that's the hardest thing in the world to do. That's the longest journey of one's life, and the hardest journey of one's life is that ability to lift yourself above your natural human instinct and continue to grow. You get here, you go here. You get here, you go here. Now, I've also had people challenge me on that. And I like to be challenged because it helps me grow. It helps me also test out my truths. So I have people challenge me on, well, when does this growth thing ever stop? When do I ever get to settle in and just relax and be happy and comfortable? The problem with that is that's not the objective of life. The objective of life is to continue to grow. So this comfort zone thing, we get confused with it. Growth is not about always getting a bigger house, a bigger boat, more money, da-da-da-da-da. It's not about that. It can be about that. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not, to me, it's really not about that. It's about your life. It's about you being a better person when you go to bed tonight than you were when you woke up this morning. That's what it's about. To do that, we have to lift ourselves above our natural human instincts. Now, there's a lot of folks who don't really understand how we do that. We have a system. Systems have a tendency to lift people above their instinctive self-interest. So by committing to a system, you don't have to make choices every day. You just commit to a system. The system teaches you little bitty creative step-by-step things to do to get a little bit better every day. Those steps are always intentional and proactive. So we're constantly stepping up just a little bit every day, not by following what our natural instinct is telling us to do, which is to stay in our comfort zone, but by following our system that in the beginning is lifting us above little steps at a time.
I love it. I love it. I love that incremental approach. I think your incremental approach, the two of you, it is changing one person at a time. It's very much in alignment with the philosophy of Defyeneurs, that everyday people can be inspired to grow to then do extraordinary things. So I really applaud you for that. So Jenni, share your thoughts on how your inspired leadership, how your leadership is starting to shift our world as a result of one person at a time.
You know, my desire is to help people really understand the power of their own thoughts and how to live mindfully moment by moment. Because, you know, it is the quality of our thoughts that's either going to propel us forward or hold us back. So, you know, like what my dad said, by using a system, by committing to a system of personal management, you learn how to create very intentional, proactive thoughts and your life. You know, you learn to create your day before your day begins. You create your month before your month begins. You create a 5-year vision statement. So in essence, you're creating your life before your life begins, right? And that's helping you putting you in a proactive mindset, because our natural human instincts like to keep us in this reactive mindset. And so I really like to help people learn how to live mindfully, think proactively, and how to dream big.
I love it. I love it. I love that, living mindfully moment by moment. I want to stay on this system for a bit. I really enjoy this system, this proactive system. David, do you feel that the David Byrd system is transferable across any sector, across any discipline?
Of course.
That's excellent.
Of course, it's not designed for any given business.
Excellent.
It's really not about business. The system is really based about life. Now, you can use the system in business. You can use the system to manage your entire life. But it's about managing, it's about improving as a human being as opposed to getting better at business. It's not we don't do time management. That was something that swept the nation in the 80s, was time management. The reality is, what we know about quantum physics now, time doesn't even exist. We're creating tomorrows right now in our head. And so we can't really manage something that doesn't exist. Actually, we created time, and we created instruments to measure it for us. So it's not a time management program. It's a life management program.
Right.
Now, why do we need that? You know, so many people say, well, why would I need something like that? I'm doing pretty good on my own. The problem is, on your own, you're ensconced into your natural human instincts. And your natural human instincts will never encourage you to grow. To grow to new levels in your life, we call our system next level growth. To grow to new levels in your life, you have to change. You don't have to change who you are. But you will have to change, because if you didn't need to change, you would already be at that level. So to get to new levels, you have to change. Growth requires change of thought. That's how you change yourself. You don't change yourself by doing everything perfectly. You don't change yourself by getting lucky. You don't change yourself by hoping and finding that circumstances all of a sudden change, so I'm lucky now. I win the lottery. And I find a lot of people steeped in their natural human instinct, not going anywhere. What they're doing is they're waiting on their circumstances to change. As soon as this happens, or as soon as this happens. We're not victims of our circumstances. We're not hapless creatures here being ready to be victimized by our future tomorrows. That's not the way it works. We're creating our tomorrows today in our head. So if we're creating the same thing every day, nothing changes. We're creating the same tomorrows as today. To change that, you have to change the way you go about your life. And so this system is incremental. It's little basic things. And we don't move forward to the next step until you master this one. And there's no time schedule. No time schedule. There's no such thing as fast or slow. It's just about growth and getting there.
What I love about this system, it's very tactile. I've seen this system. I've experienced it. I've worked through it. A little bird tells me you're not big on people using their phones, their little buzzing devices. I'm a very tactile creator, as you know. It's another reason why I like to publish in print. There's still a few of us left that like to do this. So, Jenni, what's your thoughts on that tactile, system versus, and trying to get it away from people trying to put it on their phones?
Well, I mean, there is, writing clarifies thought.
Right.
And there are tons of studies that show the kinesthetic connection between writing and the brain. And that same connection does not exist with typing. And when someone can make that change from being so addicted to their phone to writing it down, I mean, the testimonies I get back from people, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm sleeping better. Oh, I could not live without this thing. So it really is proven not only in studies, but our clients report it back to us all the time when they make that change, how much they feel better when they write it down. I also call it kind of free the brain, right? Because so many times we try to some people don't write anything down and they don't even put it in their phone, and they're trying to use their brain to be their to-do list. Well, our brains were designed for creative thought and problem solving. So when we're using our brains to be our to-do list, I mean, we're almost, we're rendering this amazing organ in our heads almost useless. So getting people just in the habit of getting it out of their head and on paper, it frees the brain for them to use it for that creative thought and problem solving.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, that's fantastic. I love it. I love it. Jenni, there's one final quote that you share, which I want listeners to hear. It goes like this: "It is the quality of our thoughts that either propels us forward or holds us back." I really love the consistent message that you have around the power of our thoughts, quality of our thoughts. So, Dave, the last question would be, what energy do you desire to see live on? What's that legacy that you want to see live on?
Yeah, I can't say I'm not sure. I know exactly what I'd like to pass on. What I would like to pass on is not an easy thing to do. So I learned a long time ago, I don't try to figure things out. I kind of let things work themselves out as I go, but I work very hard. I'm always growing. I'm working very hard. I have expectations of what I desire, but I let things come to me and I let things happen. I find that it works better for me that way. It seems like every time I try to map out okay, this is going to happen by this date and this by this date, it seems to never work out well. So what I'd like to see live on is this heart-filled, passionate, inspired leadership of being highly effective, not efficient. That's the biggest thing that we're missing today. The digital world has changed our world, and not all for bad. I mean, I'm on a computer now. I use all the digital applications I possibly could use and can learn. It's growing faster than I can learn it. But the reality is the digital world is beginning to define us. I was reading an interesting article the other night. Back in the 1500s, something dramatic happened that started changing the way we think about ourselves and about other people and our environment. The mirror began to be mass produced. I never thought about that. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, up until the 1500s, just the very wealthy and royalty had a mirror. They were able to see themselves. Now, all of a sudden, it became mass produced. Anybody could afford a mirror. So you go out into the absolute wilderness and find a log cabin, you got a pioneer family sitting out there with a mirror that they can now see themselves. In the 1500s, we began to see ourselves from the outside world in. We began to lose the capacity to connect from inside out. We are losing that capacity through the digital application. Now, let's go beyond the mirror. Now, Hollywood defines to us how we should look. All of the medical gurus are defining for us how we should feel. And the Facebook, we're raising a generation of people who define their self-identities based on what's said on Facebook. We have taken our self-identity, our awareness, and we've allowed it to move from the perspective of the outside world. We define ourselves based on outside back. I would like to make a contribution in little bitty steps of helping people understand that, and understand that through the power of our thoughts and the potential that is within us, we can achieve great things from our inside, from inside here out, not based on what the world is telling me about me.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I love that. I love your connection to this effective and heartfelt passion. And I agree with you. We're in this connection age. I often say we're more disconnected than ever. It's actually, I think, in the process of being renamed to the disconnection age, but you won't hear that from the social media experts. Okay, Jenni, I want to twist this a bit for you. I've really admired your journey. And as you know, I've had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with you and writing that autobiography. So the energy that you want to see live on, I believe you're writing your next extraordinary chapter right now. I think the best chapter of your life, you're living it right now. And your kids, wow. I mean, what an exciting time for them to see their mom just flourish into this incredible leader. So what would you like to see live on from a personal level?
Well, you know, I hope that I want to continue to really be that servant leader. And my intentions are really pretty simple. I want to continue to help people achieve and grow. And I want to continue to grow myself. And I think by doing that, like I talked about, helping others understand the power of their thoughts, trying to live mindfully, moment by moment, and not just teaching others how to do that, but really continuing and learning more to do that myself. I think that word mindfulness gets thrown around a lot, but when you can really learn how to be mindful and try to live moment by moment and be in that present moment, it really does change your perspective.
Excellent. It's excellent. Okay, so my last question, really, both of you can answer this if you like, or David, if you want to answer this. 2017, what can we expect to see from David Byrd Consulting 2017 and then going into 2018? What are some of the new things that you're working on?
We, the first of the year, in January, we launched a new program using the advanced learning technique of spaced repetitious learning. Now, that's been around for a long time. I realize that, but we've kind of gotten away from it. It was very, very effective in learning and in the process of development. The process of listening is good, but if you only hear it one time, and that's the way most learning is done today, there are podcasts and you hear it once. Now, if you want to go back, you can listen to it again, but no one does that anymore. But the idea of disseminating information and new levels of awareness in small incremental steps, something that a person can listen to every day, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and then have just small little action steps that will move them forward on a weekly basis. We Jenni and I had been talking about this for some time. Jenni tends to be my stimulus, and she called me in October and said, we're going to produce this thing the first of the year. You better get busy. I said, okay, we're going to do it. So we launched a program called our first advanced learning technique program in January called The Key to Winning the Head Game. Every day we play a game in our head that you've got to play. If you're upright breathing and conscious, you're playing this game. And the game is fought between two opponents: fear and doubt, love and trust. Fear and doubt, love and trust. Every thought you create is motivated from the intentions of one of those two things. That's the battle. We fight that battle every day. The one that wins between those two will be the one we feed the most. We have to learn to feed the side of our brain, the part of our brain that causes us to grow. And love and trust is that side of us. Every thought is driven from an intention from our deep inside our brain. We drive intentions, and those are the only two intentions of life. Every thought that you observe is going to be driven from one of those intentions. Watch the news and you can see it. Where is this intention coming from? Watch the documentaries. You can see it. Where is this intention coming from? The intentions will drive the message and the thoughts of everything that is said. So this thing of what I'd like to pass on, I would like to create an entire library of spaced repetitious programs that would be available digitally. People could listen to them and have access to an entire library of everything you could think of: executive leadership, next level achievement system, all of these things being documented and placed in library format where a person could just have this information and just be involved constantly in a daily process of growth.
I love it. That's the ultimate knowledge-based system. I love it. Jenni, you're going to keep them busy. I'm really pumped. We don't repeat a theme with Defyeneurs, and there's all these we take time to cultivate these themes. I'm always thinking of new themes, influence, big dreamers. Why does the world stop dreaming? Leadership is an issue that I've been wanting to publish for quite some time. David Byrd, Jenni Byrd, the fact that the two of you are leading this issue, I think is absolutely superb. It's another reason why I call your cover story Inspired Leadership. So on behalf of Defyeneurs, everyday people worldwide doing extraordinary things, I want to thank you for bringing your energy, your passion, your enthusiasm to this issue and really shaping it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.